Welcome back to Arise Review. U.S. President Barack Obama is taking hits from his own party. He's missing Democratic support to fast-track the multi-nation trade agreement known as the TPP. Well, that's just one messy issue Democrats are dealing with right now. Another has to do with the global foundation run by the Clintons. You know all about that, folks. Some of the donations to their charity have caused controversy. The latest comes from George Stephanopoulos. The ABC Newsman admits he should have disclosed that he had given some $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Meanwhile, Republican Jeb Bush has had some explaining to do himself when he's asked about how his brother, former President George W. Bush, had conducted the war in Iraq. Jeb gave an answer that caused confusion and consternation. Well, here to break it all down for us, of course, is Arise News senior political analyst James Carville. You're laughing already.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, perhaps we should start with your colleague, George Stephanopoulos. Right. I mean, should he have disclosed this?
He says that he should have disclosed it, okay? So when one side, this is American politics, we equate a $75,000 donation from malaria nets and vaccines with the most disastrous war in modern American history. I mean, I don't know what George did or how wrong it was, if it was wrong at all, but he didn't start a war. He gave to a global foundation that fights disease.
Well, there's a distinction. I mean, right. For instance, a news person can't give to a political foundation.
Well, it's not a political foundation.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the distinction. Right. So therefore, I guess he's probably off the hook somewhat with this, I would assume.
Well, again, by full disclosure, he's a very close friend of mine. I appear on his show frequently during the course of any year, particularly an election year. He has said, it was publicly disclosed, he didn't disclose it himself. He should have said on the air. And I'll just be honest, when I ask people what's really wrong with this, it's, well, it's whatever, okay? But that's where the story is, and he said he should have disclosed it on the air. But it's a foundation that Donald Trump is given to, that Rupert Murdoch is given to, that gazillions of people. It fights disease and poverty.
Okay, let's move on from that. It does do good things from what we all know about it. The Democrats here. What's going on now with this trade deal? A number of Democrats against it. What do we have here?
You know, it's a division in the Democratic Party. There's a feeling among a lot of Democrats that these trade agreements have caused working people or people at the middle, or the lower middle of the rung, have not done well. And there's a feeling that the people at the top have done very well in these trade agreements. You know, the president has pushed for this. Every president has pushed for free trade, regardless of party.
Of course, Clinton did it with NAFTA.
But there is so Clinton for NAFTA, and President Obama passed the Colombian free trade agreement. It was passed under his regime, but it's a difficult issue because in any agreement, there's winners and losers. And there's a feeling that the winners in these free trade agreements have been people more toward the top, and the losers have been people more toward the bottom. That's a general feeling of a lot of people in this country, and particularly in the Democratic Party.
Okay, but you're talking about red-blooded Americans here, and I think most people are talking about jobs, or at least the loss of jobs with a lot of these trade agreements. What's the rallying point around this particular deal here? Are people going to lose jobs, in your opinion?
Economists will argue this ad nauseum, ad infinitum, ad something else, and I don't know, but there's certainly somewhat of a perception. Now, a lot of foreign policy people say, if you don't do this, you leave China a vacuum for China to move in, and we have a security. And generally, I think free trade produces more good than bad. But that's just that's me, an uninformed. Just reading a little history.
Oh, you're just a humble strategist.
I'm a political guy, and I don't want to get. But I'm saying there is a real perception, in both parties, but probably a little more the Democratic Party, that these things hurt. And I'm sure there's a lot of research to back that up. It's not an unreasonable position.
We are steaming closer to 2016.
Ooh, man, are we?
I know. You're looking at chops
in a way. Yeah, I'm kind of excited.
Do you think, though, that President Obama is becoming more of a lame duck president now, lame duck-itis setting in as a result of him moving out of office? Oh,
it has to be. I mean, every president, as he's sort of winding his presidency down, his presidency will end in January of 2017. And these candidates are starting to take front and center. This is a democracy. Change is coming one way or another. There's going to be a new president, and people are starting to focus on that. Yes.
We've got to switch subjects here to your favorite person, Jeb Bush.
Right.
I mean, look, to me, he meant what he said the first time around it. Now he's backtracking on it. It's almost like in Deflategate. I think the ball boy saying he was talking about his weight, not the ball. I mean, come on.
Look, there's no Republican pushback. This was not his finest hour, or finest moment, or finest 19 seconds, or whatever it was. And what's disturbing to the Republicans is that, gee, if it took him 4 days to get through this, what's going to happen as we go down the stretch? I've seen candidates go through a lot, make a lot of errors, say things, bounce back from it. This is one of them. But it is not an unfair question to say no. It's always, let me tell you, it's always the easy questions that trip them up. Why are you running for president? Roger Bud again. The Katie Couric to Sarah Palin. What newspapers do you read? That's not a trick question. You're supposed to be able to answer that, okay? This country has debated the Iraq War. It's been, it started in 2003. We're now in 2015. You got to have an answer for that, man. It's just, it's not what Megyn Kelly asked him is not unfair, but it was easy. You'd think you would prep that. Look, she asked you this, she say that.
But James, the spin doctors can take this and twist it to the wherever they want for people to think what they want them to think about this situation. You know that.
I know that, but I think that all of the spin doctors are saying on both sides, the red and blue spin doctors are saying this was not impressive. I think even the Bush campaign is saying, well, we certainly could have done better.
You've got now 11 perhaps hopefuls on the Republican side, still basically one on the Democratic side. Doesn't seem anybody that's going to come and contend against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, let us start with the Democratic side first. I think Bernie Sanders, it's a good chance to get a lot of votes for this is over.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because people will vote for him reason other they want him to be president. His message would be, if you don't like these trade agreements, if you think that you're getting a short end of the shrimp, you can send a message. I don't think that talking in the green room this so often happened, I made the point, the worst day that Bernie Sanders is going to have is somebody says, hey, he actually has a chance. Then people will go. But I think the potential for him not to win, anything like that, it's not what I'm suggesting, but I think the potential that he gets, in a full disclosure, I'm 101% for Hillary Clinton, but I think he can be an irritant in this whole process before it's over.
Oh, no, he'll be an irritant. He'll be more than a fly on the wall.
Right, yes, okay. I think so.
In closing here, some interesting news on your personal note. Here you were the keynote speaker at LSU's commencement. Right. I didn't know you graduated from LSU.
Yeah, I went to, you know what, I said the best 4 years of my life was spent there as a sophomore.
I'm going to leave that one
right,
alone.
I'm very passionate, and there's a whole movement afoot in the United States, it's hard to believe, where there's a real assault on public higher education. And they want to commoditize it and say, why should the state of Louisiana pay for art history majors? And I think this is an absurd thing. This was something that Thomas Jefferson felt very strongly about, John Adams, Abraham Lincoln, the Morrill Act. And I think I address that issue, and I love my alma mater deeply, and I was glad to have a chance to do that.
Well, I tell you, in closing, you came out firing there, and of course, LSU stands to lose 80% of its state funding.
It does.
Yeah, so that's even though it's an SEC school, that's not a good thing.
No, it's no matter what, no matter where you are, with Wisconsin and what's happening there, it's just awful. What's happening in Arizona, a lot of places, it is awful, but we got to have, I'm a firm believer in having a well-educated public and the public taking part of that.
James Carville, always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. You bet. Always.